minutes past 9. We're off to Melbourne City now for the New Scientist feature with Janine Young joining us. Good morning, Janine.
Good morning to you.
And first up, we're looking at technologies that underpin and that came before some of the technologies that we use every day today, and that we kind of forget about that these other things did exist and perhaps paved the way for these new technologies.
I won't say that I forgot. I never knew they existed. I'll be straight up. It's one of those things that you sort of, if you weren't online in 1996, as only 1% of the world was, then you're not going to know.
Right.
There was, yeah, exactly. There was, what do you call it, a little device called the Listen Up in 1996 that for the princely sum of $299, that would have been American dollars as well, gave you an hour of content. That was a whole 32 meg, so that was about 20 songs.
Yeah.
But you had 30-second adverts all the way through it, and none of your favourite music. I think you'll agree that's perhaps not ideal. It was hooked up to an online music store.
Yeah.
It had the basic idea of what iTunes and iPod are doing now. But it wasn't until Apple came along and was able to negotiate a whole bunch of the rights to be able to get to the music that anybody was able to download any of their favourite music. Now, of course, download speeds back in 1996 were incredibly slow. It was going to take, I think it was 2.5 hours for
one
that
song?
1 hour.
Or even just one song, possibly, depending on where you lived.
Well, to even have the connection in the first place.
Yeah.
And USB ports didn't exist, so therefore you'd have to connect your computer via a parallel port, and then you had to make sure you had the right connection. It was mostly news and audio books, which, you know, $299, I wasn't going to do that, was I? So and that's what most of the world said.
And it may not have been MP3 either. I don't think MP3 had been invented in 96. That didn't come until later.
I don't know about what compression technologies were around at the time, actually, but I think you're probably right. 1996 is suddenly a very long time ago. And I remember that I was sitting on an Apple Mac at the university and I was struggling to get onto email, you know.
Yeah. So
that's, I think, the way most of the world was. But anyway, so they had a great idea, and the guy who invented it, Nathan Schulhoff, I think his name was, no, Jonathan Abrams, forgive me, still calls himself a visionary and the father of these sorts of technologies, and he reckons he's pretty hot stuff even now. But, you know, he just wasn't able to negotiate the rights, and his companies didn't have the clout to be able to do it. So it was a great idea. It just didn't quite work.
So I think Steve Jobs freely admits that he never really came up with anything original. He took ideas that actually did exist, but totally refined them and put that, you know, that Steve Jobs magic on them to make them actually work. And
didn't he?
Yeah.
Frankly, didn't he? It was just extraordinary in the way he did things, and, you know, it worked.
So what's another example?
An early Facebook. Again, this is quite a long time ago now. This is 2003. There was an application called Friendster. Makes sense. You know, you're looking for your friends and all that kind of thing. It launched in May 2003, and by 2005 it had 17 million users, which is not bad pickup. Again, not everyone was online in 2003, and the idea of a social network, it wasn't the first. 6 Degrees and a couple of other niche ones were first, but it was certainly the first that attempted world domination, and it came close. The problem was that it was a victim of its own popularity, because you had a lot of people trying to do the same thing at once, and we all know that computing power is limited, particularly when you're online. What Friendster did was try to show you how you're connected to strangers through mutual friends. LinkedIn does this now, and it does it in a heartbeat. Friendster didn't. By 2005, apparently, it wasn't uncommon for a Friendster page to take 30 seconds to load.
Yeah.
And even in 2003, our patience with 30-second load speeds was pretty limited.
Yeah.
So it became a victim of its own popularity in many respects. But the other problem was that it only allowed for individual pages. So you weren't able to, you know, tell the world that you absolutely adored, I don't know, kittens. Pick a thing.
Yeah.
So what enterprising users did, as enterprising users will do, is created individual pages and made them for kittens. So it meant that other people could connect to it as well. In itself, that probably wouldn't have been a problem, but then soon you had pages for God and Homer Simpson, and the founder of that didn't like it very much. So he went through hunting them out and deleting them without telling users, completely alienating his core users. And frankly, they left in droves. They went off to MySpace eventually when that became popular. So it's a bit sad in some respects, because this network that, was limping along and doing okay, by 2006 was dead. It was just gone. So again, it was one of those things that was on its way. What's perhaps sadder, more ironic, don't know what you want to call it, but the guy who invented it, Jonathan Abrams, rejected a $30 million takeover bid from Google.
Oh, damn.
Damn.
Should have
taken
taken
it. He's kicking himself now.
Cut and run. What a pity for him. Oh, well. So those are two examples of some technologies that underpin some stuff that we use now. On to something else now. A sound that has been heard in various places around the world coming over the horizon that has been a bit of a mystery up until now, or is it still a mystery?
Well, people think they've got ideas, and in some respects it's actually quite easy to define, but in others it's not. These rumbles or booms or really loud noises that people haven't been able to identify. They haven't necessarily been able to put it down to thunder or to sand dunes, because in certain areas, if you have a certain right type of sand, it can make singing type noises. You can have all sorts of things, but they're known across the world and have been for quite some time. They're known as Mistpouffers in Belgium. Right. That's what Belchers. Right. I couldn't resist that one. They're the Seneca guns in New York State. So these are known around the world, but Mistpouffers. I'll say that again just because I think it's funny.
Yeah.
I'm not the slightest bit juvenile. So obviously people have been trying to work out what they are. They thought they could be meteors because it's coming through the atmosphere. It will be creating a sonic boom long after we've actually seen it. So in some cases that could have worked, but that's a once-off event. That doesn't explain why people would hear these things, say, once a year. Anyway, a lot of researchers are now thinking that they're actually really low-grade earthquakes, and they're travelling through the earth in such a way, and in sorts of earth and rock, that they're actually coming to the surface. So if you have a low-grade earthquake, say a 2 or a 3, if you're standing in the right spot, for example, at the top of a fault, then it means that the sound waves, which actually zip ahead of the ones that actually rock the earth, could potentially be heard before you even know that it's happened. And it's possible that seismographs aren't going to pick these up because they can happen in areas where they don't have very detailed tracking mechanisms.
Right.
So it's possible that it could be a shallow earthquake going through, hard, fine-grained rock, and, if it meets in the right place, it could be that the right kind of waves are travelling at the right kind of time and you're getting this sonic boom coming out of nowhere. But as you say, they're not 100% sure. This is a best guess, and it could in fact be, methane belches after all.
Methane belches, the earth belching methane. Who would have thought of such a thing?
Well, the earth is talking to us. Yeah. We should be listening.
Yeah. Interesting stuff, Janine. Thanks very much for that. Of course, those stories will be in the latest New Science magazine, newscientist.com as well. Thanks very much. We'll talk to you next week.
See you next week.